Chapter 1. Briar's Point of View. 9 minutes after I put my name on a piece of paper, I belonged to someone else. According to this, the woman in black says, "You are now legally tied to me." I don't even know her name. It started with a folder. Rain hammers the glass doors of Whitlock Tower as I shove through them, soaked to the bone, a manila folder clutched to my chest like it's the only thing keeping me upright. I need to see legal review. Now, I say, breathless, water dripping off my chin onto the marble floor. The receptionist barely looks up. Name? Briar Ellery. I'm here about the Vireo file. They told me 7 o'clock, the deadlines. I glance at the clock. 6:51. I have 9 minutes. Her eyes flick to a screen, then back to me. Something changed in her face. She doesn't answer. She just slides a single sheet of paper across the counter and points to a line at the bottom. Sign here. Confirms delivery of the documents. I don't read it. Why would I? I've signed 100 forms like this for 100 case files. I press the pen down, scrawl my name, and push the folder toward her. That's when the doors behind the desk lock. Not click, slam. A heavy, mechanical sound that makes my stomach drop before my brain catches up. What's going on? I say. Nobody answers me. A woman steps out from a side hallway. Tall, black suit cut sharp enough to cut glass. Dark hair pulled back so tight not a strand moves. The kind of face that makes a room go quiet just by entering it. I've never seen her in person, but I've seen the name in 100 headlines. Iona Whitlock. She doesn't look at the receptionist. She looks at me, head to toe, the way someone studies a problem they didn't expect to find on their desk tonight. "Who let her in here?" she says. Not loud. Worse than loud. "She has an appointment, ma'am. It's logged. This is the private legal floor. There are no appointments on this floor tonight." Her eyes haven't left me. "Who are you?" Briar Ellery. My voice comes out smaller than I want it to. I work with a patient advocacy nonprofit. I was told to bring case files here before 7, before the Vireo deal closes, or a child surgery review doesn't get reopened in time. I don't. I look around at the locked doors, the silent staff, the way every eye in the room is suddenly on me. I don't understand what I did wrong. A second woman walks in from the elevator bank. Dark, wavy hair loose around her shoulders, a folder already open in her hands, reading as she walks the way people only do when they've trained themselves to never waste a second. Ione. She doesn't look up yet. Why does this woman's signature match the routing code on the Whitlock marriage filing? The room goes still in a different way now. Ione turns. What? Sealed family filing, submitted 4 minutes ago. The woman finally lifts her eyes to me, calm, assessing, the opposite of warm. "I'm Sable Wren. I handle Whitlock Family Legal. You signed something you weren't supposed to see, let alone sign." "I signed a delivery receipt," I say, "for patient files. That's all I turn back to the front desk to grab my folder, to prove it, to hold it up like evidence. It's gone. The counter where I set it down 30 seconds ago is empty. No folder, no case file. No proof of the one thing I actually came here for. "Where's my file?" I say, and now my voice isn't small anymore. It's sharp with panic. "I had it right there. I set it on the counter. I watched it the whole—" "Nobody touched your folder," the receptionist says, but she won't meet my eyes when she says it. Sable steps closer. "What exactly do you think you signed tonight?" "A receipt. For case files about a Vireo patient complaint. A child surgery review closes at 7. I was told if I didn't bring the originals here, the case gets buried again. I didn't. My hands are shaking now, and I hate that they are. Hate that they can see it. I didn't sign anything else. I wouldn't." Ione crosses to the legal terminal at the desk, scans the screen, and her jaw goes tight in a way that isn't anger. It's something closer to disbelief. "She's not lying about not reading it," she says quietly. "More to Sable than to me. That's the problem." "What problem?" I say. "What did I sign?" Ione looks up from the screen. For the first time since she walked in, something in her face cracks open. Just slightly. Just enough to let through what's underneath the ice. "According to this," she says, "you are now legally tied to me." I stare at her. The water from my coat is pooling at my feet. Somewhere behind me, the folder I need, the one with a child's name in it, the one I came soaked through the rain to deliver, is already gone, and nobody in this room is going to admit where. Chapter 2. Iona's point of view. I watch her hands shake before I let myself feel anything else. Briar Ellery stands in the middle of my private legal floor, soaked through, rainwater still dripping off the ends of her hair. She keeps looking past me, past Sable, past the locked doors, toward the front desk where her folder used to be. That's the first thing that doesn't fit. Take her to the penthouse, I say. Legal containment. Nothing leaves this floor until we understand what happened tonight. You can't just, Briar starts. I can. I don't raise my voice. I never have to. You signed yourself into my family's name an hour ago. Until I know why, you don't get to tell me what I can and can't do. She goes quiet. Most people would have argued. Briar doesn't. In the elevator up to the penthouse, she stares at the floor numbers ticking past and says nothing for 11 floors. Then, without looking at me, she says, "Did anyone call the hospital?" "What hospital?" "The child, the surgery review. That's the only reason I came here tonight, and nobody's told me if anyone even—" Her voice catches. "Did anyone call?" I study her face in the elevator's reflection. No performance in it. No calculation. Just a woman who walked into the worst night of her life and is still asking about someone else's kid. That unsettles me more than anything that's happened so far. "I'll have someone call," I say. And I mean to say it the way I say everything. Flat, final, closed. It doesn't come out that way. It comes out softer than I intend, and I hate that she hears it. The penthouse doors open onto floor-to-ceiling glass, the city glittering cold and blue below us, and Briar stops walking the second she sees it. Like the room itself is too much, like she's afraid to put her wet shoes on the rug. "Sit," I say. "Someone will bring you dry clothes." "I don't need." "You're shaking. Sit down." She sits. I call the hospital myself, standing at the window with my back to her, and I keep my voice cold on purpose, because the alternative is letting her hear how unsettled I actually am. The line connects. I confirm the surgery review hasn't closed. I confirm someone will look at the file the second it resurfaces. I hang up before the relief in my own chest can reach my voice. When I turn around, Briar is watching me, not with gratitude, with confusion, like she's trying to work out why I'd bother. "That doesn't mean I trust you," I tell her. "I didn't think it did. You signed a document that legally ties you to me. Do you understand what that means? Board members, shareholders, a dozen relatives who will want to know exactly how a stranger walked into a sealed filing and came out wearing my name." I cross the room, stop a few feet from her chair. "Someone benefits from this. I intend to find out if it's you." She doesn't flinch. "Then find out. I have nothing to hide except a missing folder and a kid who's running out of time." For a second, I almost believe every word of it. That's the problem. Because somewhere in this building, on a floor I don't control, a deal worth more money than I want to think about is closing in days. I don't know yet if tonight is connected to that deal, or if Briar is just the worst coincidence of my life. But I've built my whole career on the rule that nothing this convenient happens by accident, and right now, that rule is the only thing keeping my hands steady. I leave her in the penthouse with 2 guards outside the door and go straight to my office, where I pull up the building's internal security feed to retrace every second of tonight myself. I watch Briar walk through the front doors, soaked, moving fast, glancing at the clock above the reception desk like she's racing it. She doesn't slow down near the marriage filing queue. She doesn't look around the floor like someone casing it. She goes straight to the desk, hands over a folder, signs where she's told to sign, and waits. The way someone waits when they think they're almost done, not someone who just got what they came for. It's nothing. Nothing here proves intent. Nothing here proves a plan. I run it back twice, slower, looking for anything I might have missed the first time. There isn't anything. If Briar engineered tonight, she did it without a single second of footage showing her do it. That should make me feel better. It doesn't. Because if she didn't plan this, someone else did. Someone who knew exactly when to send a fake message, exactly which floor to reroute her to, exactly which sealed filing to attach her name to, all while staying completely off my own camera feed. Someone who had access to systems I thought only my own people could touch. I sit with that for a long moment. The office quiet except for the hum of the monitor, still looping the same 11 seconds of Briar signing a form she never read. Whoever did this wasn't reacting to tonight. They were ready for it. Chapter 3, Sable's Point of View. The receptionist's hands are shaking worse than Briar's were an hour ago. Walk me through exactly what happened, I say, from the moment she walked up to your desk. She said she was dropping off papers for the Vireo review. I pulled up her name, the system printed a form. I told her to sign at the bottom. That's it. That's all I did. She looks at me like she needs me to believe her. I print 50 forms like that a night. I didn't even look at it twice. That's the part that should scare her more than it does. Because the page she handed Briar wasn't pulled from the Vireo queue at all. I checked the print log myself. The request that generated that form came from a completely different file, one that should never have touched this desk tonight. Someone reached into the system before Briar ever walked through the door and made sure that whatever printed in front of her would look exactly like an ordinary receipt. It worked. That's why nobody caught it. Not the receptionist, not Briar. The trick wasn't in the moment she signed it. The trick happened earlier, quiet, invisible. The second that page came out of the printer, already pointed at the wrong file. Ione found nothing wrong on her own building footage, which should be good news. It isn't. If Briar didn't plan tonight and the footage proves it, then someone else did, someone careful enough to stay off every camera Ione controls while still reaching deep enough into the system to swap a single printed page. That's when Celia Harrow walks in. She doesn't wait to be called. She's already dressed for a meeting nobody scheduled her into, voice low, face arranged into exactly the right amount of concern. I heard what happened. I came straight away. She glances toward the glass wall where Briar sits, pale and silent. I hate to say this, but I've seen this before. Someone shows up right before a big deal closes, creates a scandal, and suddenly everyone's too busy with damage control to ask hard questions about the deal itself. You think she planned this? I think it's worth asking. I watch her say it. Smooth. Practiced. Every word sitting exactly where she wants it to land. Briar, through the glass, looks terrified, really terrified, hands pressed flat on the table like she's trying to hold herself still. Celia looks like she rehearsed this exact conversation in a mirror an hour ago. Fear doesn't prove someone's innocent. Calm doesn't prove someone's guilty. But I've spent years learning to hear the difference between someone telling the truth as it comes to them and someone reciting a story they prepared in advance. Celia's story is too clean for a night this messy. I'll keep that in mind, I say, and let her leave thinking I believed her. I find Briar at the table, going through the few papers that made it upstairs with her, sorting them like she's hoping one will make sense of the rest. She stops, holds one page up. This is mine, she says, from my complaint file. It was stuck inside a folder that isn't mine at all. I take it from her. One page, dated, initialed, exactly the kind of paper that should have stayed safely inside her own folder downstairs. It must have gotten swept up with the wrong stack when security moved everything off that floor in a hurry tonight. Proof that somebody else's hands were on her documents after she arrived, not before. Who else knew you were bringing your original complaint papers tonight? I ask her. Not copies, the real ones. She thinks about it, really thinks, the way someone does when the answer scares them. Almost no one, she says. My supervisor knew I had an appointment. The hospital knew I needed the file fast. She stops. Her eyes lift to mine. But the only person who knew the exact name on that file, before any message ever came to me tonight, was Celia Harrow. Neither of us says anything for a moment. I just look down at the loose page in my hand. Then toward the door Celia walked out of 2 minutes ago, smiling the entire way like she already knew exactly how this conversation was going to end.
Chapter 4. Briar's Point of View. I wake up in a chair, neck stiff, still wearing yesterday's clothes, because I refuse to sleep in a bed that isn't mine, in a life that isn't mine either. Someone knocks before I'm fully awake. Sable, already dressed, already holding a folder. Ione wants you to know a board member called this morning, asking why a stranger is suddenly married into this family. I'm not hiding that I exist. No one's asking you to. But if you walk out of this penthouse today, you walk out alone, married on paper to one of the most watched women in this city, holding the only surviving page of evidence against a company that already tried to make the rest of it disappear. She says it flatly, like a fact, not a threat. That's not safety. That's a target with no one standing next to it. I don't have an answer for that. I hate this penthouse. The marble, the silence, the way every surface looks like it's never been touched by anyone in a hurry. I feel like the one thing in the room that doesn't belong. Last night, Ione showed me the guest room. Use it, she said. Don't mistake practicality for trust. So I didn't use it. I sat in a chair by the window instead, watching the city lights, waiting for morning like it might explain something the night hadn't. This morning, there's toast on the table. Fruit. Tea, still warm. Nothing expensive enough to feel like a bribe. Just enough to make me wonder who noticed I hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. I know it was Ione. She's the only person here precise enough to make care look like paperwork. Sable spends the morning laying my papers across the table, sorting them with small silver tabs, one for each date, each name, each contradiction. Virio hoped no one would ever line up side by side. I brace for her to tell me something's missing. Something doesn't add up. Something makes me look as guilty as everyone outside this building already thinks I am. Instead, she says, "Your timeline holds." 3 words, that's all. But after a night where everyone in this city decided what kind of woman I must be, before they ever asked me a single real question, those 4 words land somewhere deeper than comfort ever could. I almost feel steady. For about an hour. Then Celia walks in, and this time, she's not pretending to check in out of concern. She's here for the acquisition review, folder in hand, voice already in business mode, before she's fully through the door. "Ione, we need to talk numbers before the board meets again," she says. Then her eyes land on me, sitting at the table with Sable's silver-tabbed files still spread in front of me, and something in her expression sharpens. "You're still letting her sit in on this? She's part of why we're having this conversation," Ione says. "She's part of why this deal is at risk." Celia sets her folder down like she's laying out evidence of her own. Let's be honest about what we're looking at. A stranger walks into a sealed filing, ends up married into this family days before we close on Virio, and now she's accusing my company of exactly the kind of misconduct that could tank the valuation. That's not a coincidence, Ione. That's a pattern. I feel my face go hot. I'm not manufacturing anything. You don't have to mean to, Celia says, almost gently, which somehow makes it worse. That doesn't make the timing less convenient, or you less of a liability, the second this stops being useful to whoever's pulling the strings here. I stand up before I decide to. Nobody is pulling my strings. Then it should be easy to walk away clean, Celia says. Once we close, all of this gets reviewed under new ownership anyway. No need to drag this family's name through a scandal over claims that may not even hold up. That's the part that lands wrong, even to my own ears. Not because it sounds false, but because of how badly she wants it believed before anyone checks. I don't see Ione move. I just hear her voice, flat and close, cutting through the room like she's been standing there longer than either of us realized. Careful, she says. She is still my legal wife.
Chapter 5. Ione's Point of View. Briar's hand is shaking under the table, and I move my water glass 2 inches closer to hers before anyone else can notice. The boardroom is full. 6 executives from the acquisition committee, outside counsel, a representative from the board, and Celia at the head of the table, like she owns the room. I brought Briar in because her name is attached to the scandal now, whether she likes it or not. That's the official reason. The real reason is I want to see what she does when she has nowhere left to hide. Let's start with the timeline, Celia says, sliding a folder toward the center of the table. Miss Ellery, you've made some serious claims about Virio's patient records. I think everyone here deserves to understand exactly how you ended up in a private legal floor that has nothing to do with any of this. Every executive in the room turns to look at Briar. I expect her voice to shrink. I've watched 100 people fold under exactly this kind of pressure. 6 strangers, a $1 billion deal, a polished woman waiting for them to fail. Briar doesn't fold. On March 14th, she says, a patient named in file 212 was denied a follow-up consult 3 days after Virio's own intake notes flagged a complication. The consent form on record doesn't match the one the patient signed. I have both. She doesn't look at notes. She doesn't hesitate. On April 2nd, a different patient's complaint was closed without a callback, even though the call log shows 4 attempts from her side and 0 from Virio's. The room goes quiet in a different way now. Celia's smile doesn't move, but something behind her eyes does. Impressive memory. Almost too impressive for someone who claims she just stumbled into this by accident. I didn't stumble into the patients, Briar says. I stumbled into your company's name. The patients were already there. I feel something shift in my chest, cold and sharp, nothing close to comfort. Briar isn't smooth. She isn't trained for rooms like this. But she's prepared in a way that can't be faked, and watching this room underestimate her, the same way I underestimated her 2 nights ago, makes me understand something I don't want to look at directly yet. She reaches for her water without looking, finds it already closer than she left it, and glances at me for half a second too long. She noticed. I look back down at my notes like I didn't do it on purpose. Celia tries again. Let's talk about how you ended up signing a sealed family document instead of a simple receipt. That's not a small mistake. Someone would have had to redirect what printed at that desk. That's exactly the right question, Sable says. And for the first time since the meeting started, she looks up from her laptop. Because the system shows exactly whose access was used to do it. Whoever changed what printed at that front desk that night had to be inside our building system at that exact hour. That could be anyone with clearance, Celia says, too fast. It could be, Sable agrees. Except it wasn't anyone. It was someone with acquisition-level credentials. Yours. The room doesn't move. Celia's hand, resting flat on the table, goes still in a way that hands only go still when someone is working very hard to look calm. That's a serious accusation, she says. It's a serious system log, Sable says. Timestamped to the minute Briar's signature was switched. I watch Celia's composure crack for less than a second. Not enough for the others in the room to see, but enough for me. Enough to know that whatever happens next in this acquisition, it isn't going to close the way anyone in this room expected it to an hour ago. Chapter 6, Sable's Point of View. The numbers don't lie, even at 2 in the morning. I've been camped out at this penthouse since the night Briar walked into that sealed filing. Not because anyone asked me to, but because there's no version of this case I trust myself to run from a distance. I spread her files across the dining table for the 3rd time tonight, looking for the crack that proves she's not who she says she is. I don't find one. Receipts, handwritten call logs, names crossed out and rewritten where she got a date wrong and caught it herself. Nothing here was built to look convincing. It's just what real work looks like when nobody expected anyone to ever check it this closely. Briar drops into the chair across from me, hair down, eyes heavy, holding 2 mugs of something that smells more like survival than tea. You ever sleep, or is this just your version of a hobby? Sleep is inefficient. That's the most you thing I've ever heard. She slides 1 mug toward me. Sable Wren's idea of comfort is administrative violence. Color-coded tabs at 2 a.m. Truly romantic. I almost smile. I catch it before it shows. What gets to me isn't the joke. It's what's underneath it. Briar isn't trying to be liked. She isn't performing gratitude for the people housing her. Isn't angling for sympathy from the woman organizing the evidence that could save her. She just wants someone, anyone, to look at the facts and actually believe her. I know exactly what that hunger feels like. I spent years being useful to this family before anyone trusted me with anything that mattered. Briar already understands the difference between useful and believed better than most people twice her age. She falls asleep at the table an hour later, head resting on folded arms, mid-sentence. Ione comes in quietly, takes the throw blanket off the couch, and lays it over Briar's shoulders without saying a word to either of us. I watch from the hallway longer than I should. It isn't just that Ione is changing. It's that I'm standing here, cataloging the careful, silent way she does it, and noticing how much I want to be the one she does that for instead. That thought doesn't belong here. I file it away the way I file everything inconvenient to feel. My phone buzzes before I can think too hard about it. A message from a journalist who's covered the Whitlocks for years, asking me to confirm or deny a story before he runs it. That Briar's nonprofit took a large, undisclosed donation from a source with a financial stake in seeing the Virio deal collapse. The implication is clean and brutal. Briar wasn't an advocate who stumbled onto the truth. She was paid to manufacture it. If this runs, it doesn't matter what Sable's proof shows about Celia. Every date, every call log, every consent form Briar handed us in that boardroom becomes something people can wave away without ever looking at it twice. But he didn't run it. He came to me first. That single fact tells me everything I need to know. Celia's sourcing is so thin that even a journalist who'd love a juicy Whitlock scandal isn't willing to print it without a denial on record. She didn't leak proof. She leaked a guess, and it's already starting to come apart in her hands. I should feel something close to relief. I don't get the chance. I close my laptop and go to find Briar to tell her none of this sticks, and the guest room is empty. The kitchen is empty. I find her by the door instead, coat already on, bag over her shoulder, hand on the handle. If I disappear, she says, before I can speak, this stops being a story about me. Maybe it stops following the nonprofit. Maybe the patients get to keep their case without my name dragging it down. That's not how this works. It's how it feels. I open my mouth to tell her about the journalist, about the proof that just landed in my hands, about how close Celia is to losing this completely. And the words catch, because Briar isn't looking at me like someone who wants reassurance right now. She's looking at the elevator like it's the only door left that's actually hers to walk through.
Chapter 7. Briar's Point of View. My hand is still on the door when Sable finally gets the words out. The journalist didn't run it, she says. He came to me first. The donation story is falling apart in Celia's hands before it ever reached anyone who matters. I should feel relief. Some part of me does, somewhere underneath everything else. But it doesn't reach the surface fast enough to stop my hand from shaking on the door handle. Okay, I say. Okay, that's good. Briar. It's good news, Sable. I heard you. My voice cracks on the last word, and I hate that it does. Hate that even good news can't undo 3 days of being studied like a threat in a building I never wanted to walk into. I set my bag down, not because I've decided to stay, because I don't have anywhere else right now that feels safer than standing still. I'm tired, I say, and once I start, I can't stop. I'm tired of having to prove I'm not lying every single time someone with money decides I might be. I'm tired of people deciding what kind of woman I am before they ask me a single real question. Poor nonprofit worker marries into a billionaire family. Of course, that's the story everyone wants. Nobody wants the boring version where I just got unlucky on a Tuesday. Hi, viewers. If you've ever had to prove you weren't lying about something you never even did, comment below and tell me what that felt like. Iona appears in the hallway behind Sable, like she's been listening longer than either of us realized. You don't have to prove anything to me anymore, she says. I already checked. You're protected here. That part isn't a question. Protection isn't the same as proof, I say. No, Sable says quietly. It isn't. That's why I'm still working on proof. I look between them, Iona's protection, solid and immediate, and Sable's proof, slower but exact, and understand, for the first time, that I need both of them, not one instead of the other. It should feel like too much. 2 women who started this week suspecting me of fraud, now standing in the same hallway like they'd each fight to keep me safe in completely different ways. Instead, it feels like the first room I've stood in all week, where I'm not the only one carrying this. I make a tired joke about Sable's color-coded folders, something about needing a manual just to survive her filing system, and I catch Iona go quiet, watching the 2 of us a beat too long before she looks away. Later, when Iona mentions the board meeting got tense, I find myself looking for Sable's face first, gauging her reaction before I even register Iona's words, and I catch Sable noticing me do it, and looking away just as fast. I don't know what to call whatever this is. I just know it doesn't feel like being trapped between 2 people. It feels like being wanted without being consumed by it, which is new enough that I don't trust it yet. Why do you keep helping me? I ask Iona. If some part of you still isn't sure. She doesn't look away from the question. Because you were afraid that first night. More afraid than I've seen anyone in this building in years, and the only thing you asked about was a child's surgery. People don't fake that detail. They fake the parts that make them look good. Sable, sorting through papers at the table, doesn't look up when she says, People lie for money. They don't usually lie with hospital call logs organized by date, in their own handwriting, with their own mistakes crossed out instead of hidden. Is that your way of saying you believe me? I ask her. She opens her mouth to answer. Her phone rings first. She looks at the screen, and whatever she's about to say dies before it reaches her mouth. It's the hospital. I'm already standing before she answers it. They denied the surgery approval again, Sable says, lowering the phone slowly, like the words are heavier than her hand can hold. Vireo submitted a new report. It contradicts the last one.
Chapter 8. Iona's point of view. We need security with us, I say, already reaching for my phone. A car, a route, someone ahead of us clearing the entrance. If we walk in unprepared, there's no time for a plan, Ione. Briar's already pulling her coat on, hands steady now in a way they weren't 3 days ago. The surgery review closes again in an hour. A car. Now that's the only plan that matters. I'm trying to keep you safe. You're trying to control how this looks. Her voice cracks sharp across the room. That little girl doesn't have the luxury of waiting for rich people to feel safe before they move. I should be offended. I'm the one offering protection, resources, a path through this that doesn't end with either of us exposed. Instead, something in my chest goes hollow, because she isn't wrong, and I know it the second she says it. I go with her. The hospital is fluorescent and tired, the kind of place that runs on patients nobody actually has enough of. An administrator behind the desk barely glances up when Briar gives the patient's name. I'm sorry. That case isn't under review right now, he says. There's a note on file. What note? I can't disclose. You can disclose it to me, or you can disclose it to whoever's licensing board reviews this hospital next month. Briar doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. I have the original complaint documents. I have the dates. I have the call logs your own system generated. Pull up the file, or get me someone who will. I open my mouth to offer my name, my family's name, the kind of leverage that usually moves mountains in rooms like this. Briar doesn't let me. Don't, she says. Quiet, just to me. Not yet. Let the truth do this part. The administrator pulls up the file himself, hands shaking slightly now that someone's actually pushing back. The new report sits there on the screen, a fresh submission from Vireo, filed only hours ago, directly contradicting the original diagnosis that flagged the surgery as urgent. This is new, I say. This wasn't here yesterday. No, Briar says. It's not. I watch her stand there, refusing to let my last name do the work she's capable of doing herself, and something in me reorganizes completely. I've spent my whole life watching people borrow power the second it benefits them. Relatives, executives, men in boardrooms who only remember their values when someone else is footing the bill. Briar won't even let me hand her mine. My phone buzzes before I can say anything else. Sable. A secure file. Just received. From someone inside Vireo, her message reads. A whistleblower. You need to see this. I open it standing in a hospital hallway. There's an internal memo, dated months before any of this started, long before Briar ever signed a single piece of paper that night. It isn't written by the whistleblower. It's written by someone inside Vireo's own compliance department, planning ahead for exactly this scenario. A strategy document, sitting in their files, waiting. One line stops me cold. If Briar goes public before close, discredit her personally. This wasn't panic. This wasn't Celia improvising under pressure when Sable caught her credentials. This was a plan, built in advance, because someone inside Vireo already knew Briar's evidence was strong enough to be worth fearing months before any of us ever met her. She wasn't framed because she was weak. She was framed because she was dangerous enough to be worth planning around. Chapter 9. Sable's point of view. I don't wait for an appointment. I walk straight into the district attorney's office. Evidence in hand. The whistleblower memo, the credentials log, Briar's original complaint files, and lay them on the front desk like I've done this 100 times. I need to file a report, I say. Falsified legal documents, falsified medical records, healthcare fraud. It all traces back to one woman's department, one set of credentials, one signed memo, planning to discredit a witness months before any of this happened. The detective doesn't ask many questions. The paper trail does the talking. The call comes through that evening. We're moving on Harrow tonight, the detective says. You want to be there? We do. Celia's apartment building is quiet, the kind of quiet money buys. She opens the door already mid-sentence, expecting someone else entirely. I don't have time for... Two officers step into the doorway behind us. Celia Harrow, we have a warrant. You're under arrest for falsifying medical records, falsifying legal documents, and healthcare fraud connected to Vireo Family Health. This is a mistake. Her voice doesn't crack. Not yet. I run compliance. I don't fabricate. We have the memo, I say, dated months before any of this started. Your signature's on it. For the first time since I've known her, Celia has nothing rehearsed to say. They take her out in handcuffs, past her own doorman, past neighbors pretending not to watch. No speech, no last clean line. Just silence, and the sound of her own front door closing behind people who aren't her. The board meets the next morning, the same acquisition committee that watched Briar lay out her evidence days ago, now facing a very different conversation. Ione doesn't open with explanations. The acquisition doesn't close as written, she says. We're restructuring the offer. Lower price, full audit of every buried complaint, and Vireo's compliance department rebuilt from the ground up under outside oversight. A board member starts to object. That's not a discussion, Ione says. That's the deal. The room goes quiet. The kind that comes after something real gets settled. Then Ione turns to Briar. We're going to need someone overseeing the patient side of this rebuild. Someone who already knows exactly how this company failed people, because she lived through proving it. She doesn't soften the offer with anything extra. I'd like that to be you, not because of anything between us. Because you're the only person in this room who's actually earned the trust of the people Vireo hurt. Briar doesn't answer right away. She looks at the room, at the file still sitting in front of her, at a year of unpaid, unseen work that just became something with real weight behind it. Yes, she says, on my terms. Full access, full authority to reopen every case Vireo buried. Done, Ione says. Briar sits back, hands steady for the first time in days. So it's done, she says. Celia, Vireo, the deal, all of it. The company, yes, I say. And everything else? Ione looks at her. I look at her too. Neither of us answers.
Chapter 10. Briar's Point of View. We don't talk much on the way back to the penthouse. The car is quiet, the city outside the window blurring past in a way that feels different than it did the first night I sat in one of these cars, soaked and terrified. Tonight nobody's chasing us. Nobody's hiding evidence. Celia's name is already moving through a system none of us controls anymore, and somehow that should feel like enough. It doesn't, not entirely, because the moment the elevator doors close behind us, I realize the only thing left unresolved in this entire mess is the one thing nobody's said out loud yet. I wait until we're inside before I say it. I think it's time we talked about ending the marriage. I say it standing in the middle of the living room, no warning, no easing into it, because if I wait for the right moment, I'll wait forever. Ione doesn't even look up from her tablet. I'll have it handled by the end of the week. Clean, quiet, no press. That's it. No pause, no hesitation. Like I just asked her to cancel a dinner reservation. It shouldn't sting. It's exactly what I asked for. It stings anyway. Handled, I repeat. Right, of course. Isn't that what you wanted? Ione finally looks up, and her face is doing the thing it did the very first night. Flat, unreadable, the version of her that controls a room instead of feeling anything in it. Sable's the one who reacts first, and not the way I expect. You're really just going to let her walk? She says to Ione, sharper than I've ever heard her. After everything? She has a job offer, a life, a year of work she finally gets to go back to with her name cleared. What exactly am I supposed to do? Beg her to stay married to a stranger out of guilt? Nobody said guilt. Sable's voice cracks slightly, which surprises both of us. Maybe just say what you actually feel for once, instead of filing it under logistics. That's rich coming from you, Ione says. You've spent this entire week color-coding your own feelings into silver tabs, so you never have to say them out loud either. Sable goes still. That's different. Is it? I don't have a legal claim to anything here, Sable says. and her voice finally breaks open, raw in a way I've never heard from her. I don't get to ask her to stay. I don't have a marriage certificate giving me permission to want that. The room goes quiet. I look at her. You wanted me to stay? I wanted... She stops herself, jaw tight, like the sentence costs her something to finish. I wanted you to have a reason that wasn't obligation. That's all. Ione sets the tablet down slowly. For the first time since I met her, she looks like she doesn't know exactly what to do with her own hands. I told myself I was being practical, she says, quieter now. Ending this cleanly, before either of us got hurt by something that started as a mistake. She looks at me, and the ice cracks wider than I've ever seen it crack. I wasn't being practical. I was scared of what it means if I actually ask you to stay and you say no. And if I say yes, then I don't know how to be the version of myself that doesn't control everything, Ione says. I never learned how. I look between them. Sable, raw and exposed in a way she clearly hates being. Ione, finally admitting fear out loud instead of hiding it behind logistics, and something in my chest that's been braced for goodbye since I walked into this room, finally lets go. I wasn't trying to leave, I say. I was trying to see if either of you would actually ask me not to. Neither of them says anything right away. The silence isn't empty this time. It's the loudest either of them has ever been. Chapter 11, Author's Point of View. Briar wakes up to the smell of coffee and the sound of two women arguing quietly about a crossword puzzle. She doesn't move right away. She just listens from the hallway, watching Ione and Sable at the kitchen counter, both of them in something closer to off-duty than either has worn since this whole mess started. Ione in a soft gray sweater instead of armor, hair down for once, Sable in worn flannel pants and an old college shirt that looks nothing like a woman who color-codes evidence for fun. 7 letters, Sable says. Starts with R. Clue is unyielding. Resolute. That's 8. Then it's wrong, Ione says, not even looking up, and Sable laughs, actually laughs, low and unguarded, and Briar feels something twist in her chest that she doesn't expect. She steps into the kitchen before she can examine that feeling too closely. Morning, she says. Sable's eyes flick up first, and something in her expression shifts, quick and careful, like she's recalculating something. There's coffee. Briar pours herself a cup, leaning against the counter in the t-shirt she borrowed from someone's drawer 3 nights ago and never gave back. Ione's eyes track the movement for half a second longer than casual requires. You two seem comfortable, Briar says, nodding at the crossword. We've had a lot of early mornings together this week, Sable says, mostly arguing about evidence formatting. Mostly, Ione echoes, and there's something in the way she says it, soft, almost private, that makes Briar wonder exactly how many of those mornings happened before she ever walked into either of their lives. She doesn't like the small, sharp thing that twists in her again. Later, sprawled on the couch with Sable going through case files on her laptop, Briar makes a joke about silver tabs, and Sable's mouth curves into something easy and real. Ione, crossing the room with 2 glasses of water, stops in the doorway for 1 second too long, watching them. Something wrong? Briar asks. No, Ione says, too quickly. She sets the glasses down and leaves the room without finishing whatever she walked in to say. Sable watches her go. She doesn't usually retreat like that. Do you think she's jealous? Sable says it like the word tastes strange in her mouth. Iona Whitlock doesn't get jealous. She gets quiet and reorganizes something instead. But Briar notices Sable's own jaw tighten when she says it, like she's talking herself out of the same feeling. That night, the 3 of them end up in the same room without planning it. Briar curled into the corner of the couch, Sable beside her close enough that their knees almost touch, Ione standing by the window with her arms crossed, watching the city instead of either of them. You've been quiet all day, Briar says to her. I'm thinking. About. Ione turns, and for once, there's nothing controlled in her face at all. About how much I don't like watching the 2 of you be easy with each other, while I stand over here, working out whether I'm allowed to want the same thing. The room goes still. Sable's hand, resting near Briar's knee, doesn't move, but something in her posture does, like she's bracing for an answer she's not sure she wants to hear. Allowed by who? Briar asks quietly. By either of you. By myself. Ione crosses the room slowly, stopping closer than she usually allows herself to stand. I don't know how to want two people at once, without feeling like I'm about to lose both of them. Maybe that's not how this has to work, Sable says, voice lower than usual. Ione looks at her, really looks. Longer than either of them probably means to let it last. Is that you finally saying something out loud? Briar asks her. Sable doesn't answer right away. She just reaches over, slow and deliberate, and tucks a strand of hair behind Briar's ear, the kind of touch that has nothing practical about it at all. Then she looks up at Ione. Your turn, she says. Chapter 12. Author's Point of View. Ione doesn't answer with words. She crosses the last few feet of space between them and kisses Sable first. Slow, deliberate, like she's been holding the question in her chest for longer than tonight. Sable's breath catches against her mouth. When they finally pull back, Ione doesn't let go of her hand. That's been a long time coming, Sable says, voice unsteady in a way it never is during depositions or boardrooms. Longer than I let myself admit, Ione says. Briar watches from the couch, heart hammering, half certain this is the part where she becomes the outsider in a room she just helped build. Then Ione turns to her. Don't, Ione says, like she read the thought directly off Briar's face. Don't go quiet and assume you're not part of this. She closes the distance and kisses Briar too, softer than the one before, almost careful, like she's asking permission with her mouth instead of her words. Briar doesn't pull away. When she finally steps back, Sable is watching both of them with something unguarded on her face, none of her usual careful distance left standing. I don't know how this works, Sable admits. 2 people, 3 people, I've never let myself want any version of it before. Then we figure it out, Briar says. Together. No legal paperwork required this time. Ione laughs, short and real. About that, she glances toward the hallway where, weeks ago, a sealed marriage filing changed everything by mistake. I was going to ask if you wanted the annulment paperwork shredded instead of filed. You're asking me to stay married to you on purpose? I'm asking if you want to be my wife because you chose it, not because a system glitch decided it for both of us. Ione looks at Sable too. And I'm asking if there's room in that for someone who never needed a legal document to already belong here. Sable's throat works for a second before she answers. There's room. Briar looks between them, Ione, finally letting herself want something without controlling every variable around it. Sable, finally saying out loud what she's spent the entire story filing away as inconvenient, and realizes the choice she's been circling since that very first night in the rain isn't complicated anymore. Then yes, she says, to all of it, the marriage. Whatever this is between the 3 of us. Whatever it turns into next. Nobody moves toward the door. Nobody needs to anymore. She married into a wealthy family by mistake. But the real miracle was never that 2 ice queens refused to let her go. It was that, for the first time in her life, all 3 of them finally let the choice belong to her. And she chose every part of it, on purpose, with nothing left to prove. The end. If you want to be here for the next one, subscribe now. Thank you for watching.